How you doing, guys? Casper here from the Geek Home. So just a bit of a different video to break things up a bit. I've been doing a lot of tabletop gaming updates lately, so I want to get back to also doing a bit more other content videos. Just been a bit busy the last while, but this is the first one of hopefully a lot more again, for those who might enjoy these types of videos anyway. I look around at all of the people and there's absolutely no one. Anyway, so Dune, the part 2 of the Denis Villeneuve directed Dune movie series, duology. I don't know, whatever. I am a massive fan of Dune. I've read the first book multiple times. I've read I've read up to God Emperor. I've not read further than that. It gets a bit heavy and I just haven't had that much more time to actually get into it, because it changes a lot from like God Emperor and further. It becomes completely different. But I know what happens in them because I've just knocked Dune over. But I've read quite a lot of different sort of synopsises about them and sort of analysis about the other books, and all of the books pretty much. And like I said, I've read and I've listened to the audiobook of the first one, especially the first three, quite a few times. So I'm a pretty big fan of the Dune universe, the lore and all of the stuff in it, way longer before the movies came out. I watched the original movie, 1984 version by David Lynch, very strange movie. I have watched that. I've even watched there's also a YouTube fan-made edit for that, which you can actually watch. It's a lot better than the original. I suggest checking that out. It's on YouTube. And then I've also watched the miniseries. I can't remember when they did the miniseries. Miniseries about, I think, 15 years old, maybe, something like that, but it was done in the 2000s, I think. It was pretty good. It lacked a bit of budget, unfortunately, so some of the costuming and the special effects and stuff have aged quite badly, but as a story thing, it's actually still probably gets the adaptation. It's the adaptation that's probably the best when it comes to actual focusing on the world and story, I'd say. That was pretty good, and I enjoyed that, and I've always enjoyed the Dune stuff. Overall, I've played the Dune games that came out, the RTS games, all of that stuff. I'm ranting on a bit, but that's my history of Dune. So I loved Dune Part 1 of the new Villeneuve adaptations. I thought it was, I know a lot of people didn't like the pacing of the movie because it is a bit of a slower paced movie. I mean, it's not a heavy action movie. It does have some good action in it, but it's not a heavy action movie, and it takes a bit of time to get pretty much nowhere actually, really, because it's not a complete movie on its own. But I really liked it because it was taking its time and it was building things up. It was still missing a lot of detail, unfortunately. But it was doing a very good job, and the look of the world and the feel of the world, the special effects, the cinematography, the dialogue, all of that stuff was really well done. I thought the casting was really well done. All of those things was great. For the most part, there were one or two things with that which are here and there about, but for the most part, even at part 2 now, all of that stuff has carried over just as good. Special effects are great. The dialogue is good for the most part. The story we'll get to now. Everything, the cinematography, all of that stuff is really good. It's a very well made movie. I'd say the music is also really good. Music isn't as impactful as I would have hoped it would be for me sometimes, just considering it is Hans Zimmer, but it is good. It has a really good score which fits the movie. And I want to make it clear, I really liked Part 2. I thought it was an excellent movie. It is a lot better than anything I think that's come out in the cinema in quite a long time. Just when like when the first one came out. I'd probably say it's the best movie that I've watched. I haven't watched a lot of cinema stuff in the cinema, so it's the best movie I've watched in cinema since then, since the first one. And it's probably the best movie I've watched since the first one came out, I would say. From a movie perspective, I think it's very good. I would definitely rate it at like a 9 out of 10 probably. From a really heavy fan perspective, I'm going to not be as happy with it. I am not as happy with it as I was with like the first one. The reason being just like the first one took its time a lot more. It was a lot slower paced. This one is much faster paced, even though it's a slightly longer movie. And the problem with that came in is that he was very slow paced in telling that first sort of part of the story in the first part, and he's telling there's a lot more to be told in the second part. So the spacing is a lot faster, but it feels like you need another half an hour at least to really do anything properly with it. So that's my biggest gripe with it. It is not long enough, and the pacing is a bit too fast. It needs to breathe a little bit sometimes, take time with the characters and the world a bit more. And then there's a lot of detailing missing for a fan like me, because I know all of the stuff about the universe for the most part, and I'm sort of a big fan of the universe and everything. I sort of obviously know all of the extended details about things. There's so much missing that it annoys me that it's missing, because I know it's there probably in the background, but it's just not mentioned or talked about. Sometimes things might be mentioned here and there, but not really. Like one of the things that I took a bit of gripe with, well, not gripe, but I want to say, which I find, these are the things that I would say I found annoying. The Spacing Guild is effectively almost never, I don't think they're ever mentioned in this movie. They weren't really mentioned much in the first movie as a big thing, but they're almost never, I think, mentioned in this as a thing that's there as part of the whole political power thing. It's almost like it's completely missing, which is a very big part of the whole Dune story. There are things, just spoiler warning, I'm going to talk about some spoiler things now. There are things which he changes, Villeneuve changes, which I don't particularly like him changing. I understand some of the changes, but I find some of them slightly annoying just as a big fan. Like, for example, Alia not being born in the movie is weird to me, because she's the one, Alia is Paul Atreides' sister, who becomes like awakened inside of Jessica when she takes the water of life. And they're not being born and then actually being the one who kills the Baron Harkonnen, I found annoying, because that's a big thing later on in Children of Dune. It's a very important thing. So that where Paul then kills Baron Harkonnen, I found a bit, it's not jarring, it's just I found it a bit not the way that I would have done it, because that has always been very important in the overall story of Children of Dune, is the possession of Baron Harkonnen of Alia by Baron Harkonnen, because he's one of the minds in her, and one of the big plays of that was that the fact that she killed him, and he was effectively taking revenge on her. So that's part of the sort of story of things of the overall story that sort of is now sort of disrupted in my opinion. It's not that, I mean, I'm sure it can still work if Gates to doing Children of Dune. Apparently he has penned third movie now, so Dune Messiah. I'm guessing he's going to do something that's just closer to the end of this movie, so it'll deal with the jihad a bit, and then we'll get into Dune Messiah, and then if you can go all the way to Children of Dune, obviously. So yeah, it's a bit of a change to the story then, but there are a few things like that. Then the way in which he changes Paul and Cheney's relationship, so he changes Cheney's character significantly, which I didn't have that big a problem with. Sometimes it was a bit flat maybe in the book, and So it's fine, but there are certain specifics about it which I didn't like the way that he did it. And first one is, it doesn't really feel to me like they're in love. I never really got that sense that they're in such a good relationship. She comes off to me to be a little bit whiny and a little bit too, whatever all the time, complainsive all the time and whatever. So I wasn't as big a fan of them doing that. I sort of get changing her character a bit is fine, but I thought this way of doing it in this way was slightly a bit not the way that I thought he should have done it. One of the big things also is that you might not know is that in the books, Janie and Paul actually have a son already, because the timeline's way different in this. I mean, Alia's not even born by the end of this movie, whereas by the end of Dune she's already a toddler in the books. So it's quite a bit different. And then also Janie and Paul have a son which gets murdered by the Harkonnens. So the timeline is completely different. Like, this plays off where the original Dune plays off over like a period of, I think, 4 years almost. It's something like that, 3 or 4 years. This plays off like really quickly. It's almost plays off in a few months effectively, which is quite a bit different than it was in the books. And some of that I don't mind, but some of it them not having a son now and it ending the way it did means they'll never have that son. So that son doesn't exist in this adaptation, in this version of the universe, which is a big part of their relationship of being with each other, and then eventually the twins that they have and the new children. Once again, the pain of all of that you'll know about if you've read Children of Dune, where they never get to see their children grow up, either of them. They only know their children as infants, and that's it's like a very sad thing about the story for me, and it was always a very connective thing between the two of them for me about the story, and one of the hardnesses about the story. Overall story. So I didn't like that much, that he didn't even do anything with that. There is nothing like that. And then the ending, at the end of the book, she is accepting of the fact that he needs to marry Irulan in order to heal up everything. She's a bit more now, okay, no, fuck this, sorry for the bad language, I'm just leaving. And he's like, she'll come around eventually because I can see the future, all the futures, which is fine, I get that, but it was a bit like whatever. So those are the positive things I didn't like that much. Now, the things that I did like about this movie, there's a lot I liked about this movie. The action is done very well, although the final battle scene is just way too truncated. We needed more of it. The Sodercard doesn't feel they don't feel imposing enough to me. There needs to be a bit more done of the final battle scene, but the overall action and stuff is done really well. Like, the feel of the universe is once again really feels like the Dune universe. He does a bit of a different spin on the Harkonnens, like KD Prime, the Harkonnens' homeworld. So it's like all black and white. It's very weird, but stylistically it was actually pretty cool. I actually enjoyed that. So there's lots of stuff, like the artistic choices and things I really enjoyed. I didn't like the Emperor. The Emperor wasn't done correctly. Christopher Walken's a great actor, but it doesn't even matter that he played the role, because there's nothing really there. Maybe he'll do something with that in the other movies or something, I don't know. But technically the Emperor's role is supposed to end at the end of this movie, the old Emperor, and Paul becomes the Emperor. So a lot of the checkboxes are hit really well, like him sending the Vatican off on the Holy War. That is done really well. I really like that. At the end it feels like they're going now, and he sends them, basically the line is lead them to paradise, which was very yeah, that was pretty good. And then there's some things, like there is a bit of a removal of like the Arabic sort of references, the Islamic references, that a lot of the the culture of the Fremen is based on, which isn't in. I've seen some complaints about that. I don't have a bigger problem with that, but yeah, it's a bit annoying because the entire idea is that there's this culture in the future which was based on a specific type of culture and following and everything. So yeah, it's a bit annoying, but I don't have a bigger issue with that. Overall, the Fremen are okay. They don't work as homogeneously as well as I would want them to work as a group. There are some issues with the way in which they are, they exist and everything, but whatever. Overall, it's done pretty well. It's, for the most part, like I would imagine it to be in like the books, I guess. So yeah, but there's a few things like the Cho company, for example, isn't mentioned if you know the books. That's actually quite an important thing. But so overall, the movie was very good as a movie. I really enjoyed it. I'm going to rewatch it. I'm going to keep on watching these movies if Villeneuve decides to make more. Well, if this one does well and he gets the clearance to make more, I guess, from Warner Brothers, we'll have to see what happens. So yeah, I can highly recommend going to watch this movie. I know it sounds like I've just complained quite a lot in this now, because I probably guess I have, but that's just from a book reader's perspective. As a movie, I can see it as a separate thing from the books. I enjoyed it as what it is. I would have liked it if it was a bit longer, so we could get a bit more detail in. Even with the changes made, I just wanted a little bit more detail. Like half an hour to an hour longer. Would really love it if there was an extended version of this movie. It really needs that. So we can get more fleshing out of things. So yeah. Highly recommend going and watching it. That was pretty much my review. I would still give the movie, from a fan, like I said, from just a movie perspective, I'd say 9 out of 10. From a fan perspective, the book, I'd probably say about an 8 out of 10. It is a really good movie. I really recommend going to watch it. Then I just wanted to remind you all, we are a tabletop gaming store, geekhome.co.za. We're in Pretoria, Morata Park, and then we sell things that are part of the Dune franchise, like some board games, pretty much. So there's a couple of different board games like this one specifically. You can check that out on our website, geekhome.co.za. And then I want to thank you for joining us, joining me, and then I hope you enjoyed this video, even though I complained too much probably, but that's life. I still enjoyed the movie. Thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.